morning, Howard. Being 92 years old and
oh, he's 91. Don't get him too old.
Oh, okay, 91, going on 92, and being involved with the building of this church. We'd just like to get a little bit of the history down, so we can, all of us can remember in the years to come. And would you just tell us a little bit about the building of this church?
Well, 1945. The previous summers, I had done certain things that Aubrey Edmonds thought might be of some interest to him. And he said, now, we need something up here. The church has already been torn down. So, we talked about it. How about it? All right. I'm sure there'll be St. Olaf students who would be glad to do this. And I had just come back from Germany. This was in 46. And Arnie Flotten in the art department had agreed to design the church along with Ed Sovic. That was design. Then one day I was called out of class. Urgent long-distance call. Went, Hong, Osgard here. You got to go to Germany again. He didn't waste time with words. So we had this big meeting, and that settled it. So the camp was operated by Arnold Flotten and Hovland Flotten. 1947, I was in Germany by that time. And,
so the completion date of the church, when was that?
Well, when would you say that? I'd say 49. I came back from 49. I can show you certain cedar boards that I put up.
Sure.
On the stairway.
I know,
also up at the altar.
That's why I kind of qualified to completion.
Well, I didn't have my knife with me, otherwise I would have put my initials in there.
Yeah.
So the idea, and it has meant a lot to these students. I mean, they constitute a kind of fraternity, you see. I mean, this meant a lot to them. Well, it ought to, because there was point in the work, you see. And incidentally, how was this financed? They financed it themselves. The people here, the members of the congregation, worked as much as they could, you see. There was a fine relationship, and whenever I see some of these former participants, they all bring it up, you know. It had a qualitative character for them, and the relationships up here with the people were so friendly and good and cordial. And it was a great idea.
Well, we should start by just introducing, and I'm the pastor here at the moment, Bill Beckstrand, and I'm fortunate that I got to be here long enough ago that I got to know some of the original players, and Howard Hong and Ham Moose was one of my best friends, and Dorothy and Peterson certainly, and Dwayne and Virginia and their home and all that. So that's lucky me. Here's a letter from 1948 from Howard. July 16th, Friday, both Jeep and truck left the Flotten household in Northfield at 7:10 a.m., full of campers and baggage. Dinner at Moose Lake, Duluth, 2:45, picked up more campers. So they had that old Army surplus Jeep, what I think isn't that still somewhere up in the woods back there, rusting away?
No, that was our family car.
The Jeep?
Yes.
Wow.
When I was in first grade, second grade.
No kidding.
Kindergarten.
Wow.
And he kept it.
Okay.
And when he died, my brother Eric got it. It was brought over by the U.S. to France on D-Day.
Oh, my goodness.
Is what I was told.
Wow.
And somehow my dad got it after the war, got it shipped back. And yeah, Eric had it fixed up and gave it to the, I don't know, VFW or something like that in Northfield. So it's in the Memorial Day parades.
Really? How,
Time
how
to-
fun is that? Wow.
So it's still alive.
Okay.
Is it true that the flooring came from the old church, the original church, and was brought over?
That's what I heard.
That's
the
the story, yeah, that it-
Story.
from up there at the North Road, it was all brought down here. And I'm trying to figure out, it seems like this is a bigger church than that would have been, so how was that enough flooring?
Sure, right.
But that was always a story, that they brought all the flooring down.
I heard that from Dorothy Peterson, that glass bookcase in my office, that barrister's bookcase, was from the old church. And of course, the pump organ,
So
which,
what is that?
and that's in the
Parsonage.
parsonage garage. And then I think the hymn board probably came from the old church,
Yep, that did come from the old church, I remember that.
but probably not much else. And it's funny how we just don't have a lot of pictures of the old church. A couple that I know of is all. But so that film, the movies, kind of reveal that the kids probably did most of the stonework in 1947.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is amazing, yes. And this indoor space is where Mildred and Edwin got married,
Right.
the
They were
first
ones.
first wedding in here, but it wasn't upstairs, it was down here.
Down here. And
Before
then,
there was an upstairs.
And then was it Dorothy and Larry, or was it your
I
parents
think
second?
Larry and Dorothy got married next.
Okay.
And then your folks were third.
Yeah.
Here's this very famous, our iconic woodcut from 1950 that John Spellman did. And John Spellman was just a very well-known, very almost famous, I want to say, woodcut artist.
Well, that's what was on all the bulletins, and I'm trying to remember if Grandma used to print the bulletins
On the mimeograph.
on that thing that you,
With all the running.
and you'd have to change all the letters on it, and she'd be do that every week to,
Yeah.
you know, and I remember helping her crank a few through a couple times.
Right. I'm curious to know how the whole thing got sort of started, because the church on the North Road was taken down long before this church got started.
Really? Where
And-
were they?
and
Where did
I'm-
they have a church?
They had church for quite a while down in the school.
School, there was a picture.
I had heard, I don't know from who, but that it was Howard that really helped to encourage the congregation to let's get going, maybe even found this little piece of land or something, and we can help you kind of thing. And but for years there wasn't anything happening after they took down the old church.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me if that were true at all, because this is before I was born, in 1943, my parents went down to southern Missouri in the summer
Ooh, no.
to help a student work camp build a goat barn.
Okay.
And this was happening before Dad went to work with refugees in Germany after the war. But he'd been working with prisoners of war in this country, traveling around. So I don't know that he would spearhead it, because I think there had to be the willingness and the interest up here, and the quality, the kind of people that could do this kind of thing. And maybe he noticed that, and he could certainly galvanize it, and encourage, because he had experience, and had this whole can-do attitude, crazy can-do attitude. But who did the whole building design?
Arnold Fountain.
He did, really.
So the only thing he used Ed Sovic for, and Ed Sovic was not yet an architect, he was still an undergrad at St. Olaf. Arnold couldn't quite figure out structurally how the beams were going to work, and it was Ed Sovic that worked that detail out. He was one of the most, well-known and busy church architects in the country. But he was still a really young man in late 40s when this was done, so that was one of his first contributions. And then when we started thinking about the addition, Willis Schallberg was still around, and so he and I talked a lot about what might happen there, and he gave us actually 3 proposals that we looked at, if you remember those early days of the committee. And they were, pretty substantial, great big, and I think we looked at them and thought, well, this is quite something, but it's not going to ever happen here. But that's really what got us started on thinking about what we ended up doing, was Willis Schallberg and his plans.
Well, when they got this huge project done, what did they do? They suddenly you'd have time on your hands, or, I mean, I'm still just struck with the commitment in time and energy it took for a really devoted crew of people, 3 summers plus through the year. That's a real community builder.
Yes, indeed, a lot of energy. A lot of energy, no, indeed.
And so sort of abrupt, just got here. Maybe I might collapse and have Howard come up. He is going to come up eventually. But I'm Edna Hong and Howard Hong, and we have decided to lead this Bible study this evening.
We can be very efficient here. You remember, certainly most of you heard that story about the fellow who visited in a penitentiary. We sat there talking with the warden, and we heard these waves of laughter coming from the cell box. And he said, "What's going on there, warden?" So what's going on out there? Well, they're telling stories. I do hearing stories. Let's just listen. 17. Loud laughter rolls through the whole place. 13. Louder still. 7. Another roll of laughter. He said, "What do you mean? You just have to give the number? They all know the stories." Well, I have to finish the story, but that's all I want to make use of. The point is, here you have the numbers. And since you know the stories, we can stay within our time limit, as promised by the pastor, and has been published in the paper and everything.
So,
When we came, we drove in, and it was like even to Ham all new, because it had been a while since he'd been there,
yeah,
and it was very countryish, much more country looking,
okay,
like rural and out in the,
yeah,
but people were just outside all over, and very exceedingly gracious and welcoming. Some of those people at Trinity, the Palmers Don and Elsie Palmer were very active. Diane Anderson's parents were very active. They, honestly, Oscar Sundquist and Ann and Marge, well, Ann and Marge were the hostesses of the Hovland area. And they would take us down the shore and go from cabin to introduce. I mean, that's the way people were.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I can remember one weekend, it was the weekend, there was some illness on the staff at camp, and Elsie Palmer from Hovland was the first to say, "I'll babysit Nathan for the weekend if you want to go to this funeral," or whatever we went to. But gracious people.
Yeah. So it was the re-roofing of this building that got all this started, and Ham Moose and I did that. And Ham, gosh, he worked around the clock researching. The council really thought, oh, well, anymore, we'll have to just put asphalt up there. I thought over my dead body. So I went out and found somebody who said they would be willing to pay the difference between an asphalt roof and cedar. So I was able to go and say, you know, money is off the table. And given the fact that it's not a financial decision, we might as well go with cedar. This door right here. So I think Arnold Flotten always assumed that the main entry to the church would be these double doors under the carving. And those are the doors that are least used of any door in the church. You know, they're hardly ever used. But they're beautiful, beautiful doors.
They really are.
But that door is designed like those original doors. It was Rusty Johnson who said, you know, because of the history of the St. Olaf work camp and the way that the original building had gotten done way back when, as being almost a totally volunteer kind of effort, and wondering, you know, we probably can't do anything like that anymore, but what could we do that would at least have an element of that? So Rusty Johnson said, what about taking a class at the North House Folk School and making a timber frame? And I think we thought, what a brilliant idea.
And you maybe thought about that because I had two of his kids in a timber frame program.
Okay.
High school timber frame.
And then I think we then got sort of surprised as we geared up for that when we had close to 30 people sign up for the thing and realized that's too many. I mean, it's just too many to make a class viable.
But it was good. I mean, we had some people there for a few days, for longer, and some shorter.
Well,
and there was, with the variety of stuff we were doing, there was different stuff for different people.
But there's no timber frame joinery in this.
No.
And it's the mid-century modern kind of it's a Douglas fir with local pine in the middle.
Pine in the middle, yep. White pine. Yeah, we needed the Douglas fir for the strength.
What do you remember from the class, for example?
I just remember so many different people of all ages being involved.
Yeah, Martine was barely 10 when she was doing some of these carvings.
Yeah.
It was a fun class. It was a very energizing time for the congregation. And yeah, and a lot of very proud people to have been able to, you know, do something.
Right.
And participate in the building of their own church, you know. And people that come here and visit, and we have many, many people that do comment that, well, it just seems like this has always been, you know, it belongs. Was this pretty much your gig? You came here every day?
I think I stayed here until we finished what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was mainly the 2017 into 2018 year.
Okay.
Because then we dedicated it in 2018. This is a fun drawing. So incorporating all the elements from the you know, the original church. And it was David Hahn that did a lot of these artistic renderings. And we ended up making the windows much bigger than in this drawing, of course. But it's the same idea. And you trimmed them out in a way that makes them look like these trusses. And even though they're just against the wall, they did really echo the old building, just with the way it's defined. I think that really works really well.
Yeah, the buildings tend to design themselves.
Yeah,
And, you know, we try to take the credit, but
yeah,
that's not true.
Right. But I remember we wondered about what to do outside this door, and are we going to just have 5 steps going down or whatever? And it was Barb Knox who one day said, well, why don't we put a deck there? Yeah. And it was like, well, that's kind of a smart idea. So we quickly got some money together, and it didn't take much at all because everybody agreed, yeah, we need to have a deck there. So,
well, it's good to hear after these years since it's been done that all the reactions I've heard of have been positive.
I'm Jane Davis, and I'm from Minneapolis, and my parents, Emily and John Birmingham, have a cabin just pastor, and she heard, or somebody heard, that I worked on churches
Right.
and brought me in to talk about it and doing drawings.
So we initially, after church on a Sunday, I asked Jay to stay, and we went down here, and this used to be the driveway here on the back of the church, and just to imagine walking to what is an entryway, but this whole thing is a grand entryway, and be able to see straight through the building to the woods on the other side. And since then, of course, we have our pollinator garden out here and a deck, and it's just a lovely, lovely thing. But I think initially that was drawn up in a drawing by Willis Schauberg, where he did have a gathering space too and a bit of a courtyard. And Willis early on provided a couple of plans for adding on to the church. And we were at the time re-roofing the church and heavily involved in that, and wondered if we might put a tiny little tag on the back of the church so that we could have an office and a bathroom. That was basically the gist of it. And I remember those early meetings where we were doing little exercises on how small can we do this, because we knew that it wasn't going to be able to be substantial for this congregation. Willis's plans were great, but we thought, here's one where you actually come in at a different entry, and then there were steps up to yet another aspect of the
I
building.
think this might have been the one that I saw.
Sure.
It had this vestibule
Right,
here.
yeah.
I think I have it upside down.
Right, with the entry here.
Yeah, and you come in here and
With a separate entryway. Right?
yeah,
Correct.
which makes a lot of practical sense.
But anyway, we knew we had to keep it modest, we had to keep it small. There was no way we were going to sell it to the congregation without having it be very affordable. I mean, when you look at this kind of an economy garage idea,
Right,
this is
yeah.
David Hahn's artistic rendering, and it was just,
He was probably trying to stay within the economic bounds
exactly.
of
How cheaply
Yeah.
can we do this, which was our initial
Right,
exercise.
yeah,
How cheaply
yeah.
can we do this?
Yeah,
Anyway, and then at this point, we were still talking about keeping, of course, that tiny little dark entryway.
well, you
vestibule.
wanted a choir loft.
And so we were gonna put a balcony above it, and that's where Bob Hewitt came in,
Yeah,
and he gave us a whole bunch of renderings of how can we put a balcony in, where's the stairs gonna go. He did quite a bit of work that way. And in the process of tearing down those walls in there, and we could see what it looked like in there, just all opened up, and it was just so striking. We thought, no way, we'll skip the balcony. We don't need that anymore, because this is the new narthex. This is the gathering space. So then you go from here right into the sanctuary, and I love the fact that you're going from a lowered, intimate kind of a roof line that feels contained into a much loftier space that way. The remarkable thing is we did it very economically, and it was paid for in a couple years.
really? Oh, that's great.
A couple, 3 years.
I mean, it was a fun project to work on because it really did morph and change a lot. I mean, even as you're, like you said, as you're building it, it's changing.
The old church up on the North Road was built in 1913, 4 years after the congregation was started, and very much a local effort, people supplying the materials, doing the labor. But then the highway that exists today came in 1932 and 1933. And when that was finished, it cut off the old church from the main traffic patterns, and I think there were some demographics shifting so that attendance kept dwindling. So I think it was inevitable, something needed to happen. So the old church was torn down in 1946.
Oh, okay. I had thought it was earlier than that,
No,
because
it's-
they worshiped for a while down in Chicago
Right.
Bay. So they hadn't necessarily torn it down, but they weren't worshiping in it either.
No, right, and by, the mid-1940s, or even in the 1930s, people owned automobiles, so it wasn't difficult to get down to worship services in Chicago Bay.
Yeah. But interesting that it would be coinciding about the same time that Harold Shuffle shows up.
Yes.
And so here he is, new to Cook County, new to Hovland, new to Trinity Lutheran, and then volunteers to chair this new building committee. And so here it is, kind of the new new faces that are really leading the charge here.
Yeah, that first building committee had some of the old timers like Nelson Norman, he was on the committee. But I think the generational change was definitely happening
Yeah.
with that next generation.
Yeah, I think Harold Schuppel was, barely 40 years old
That's right.
when this all started. One of the interesting pictures downstairs was showing a student up on a ladder with a hammer and a chisel
Yes.
working on these carvings. And of course, we've always assumed that they would have been carved while they were down on the ground before they were erected, like we did at the folk school
That's
with the
right.
addition.
Yeah.
But perhaps not. Maybe they carved them in place.
I imagine that to do the carving before they were erected would have been incredibly time consuming.
Okay.
And they probably, that summer, when these went up, were moving ahead as quickly as possible
Yeah.
so they could get the roof on.
And that would have probably been 1948, I'm going to think. I think 47 was pretty much just the stonework.
I think after the students left in 49 and, the people here who did a lot of the work,
Yeah,
that's when they started to put in the windows
right.
and all of that. I don't think the Flodden altar window was installed till 1953.
Is that right?
So there was
Okay.
a
Huh.
3-year period after the dedication. But, so you get to 1950 and everyone's life moves on. But I don't think Hovland is forgotten among the students.
Right.
It's a constant place to visit or to support whatever, and it's built now into the memory and the history of the church. I think maybe what's kind of fortuitous for the energy of the church is the post-war baby boom.
Right.
This was a church full of kids.
Right. Vacation Bible School was giant. Yeah.
Sunday school.
Yeah.
The church had its own energy
Right.
to build off of that. I think just like we built off of all the energy,
Right.
9, 8, 7 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That whole effort started really in 2014.
Yeah.
So it was
Right.
years in the making.
Yeah.
So.
And then the byproduct was, I don't think any of us realized at the time, by building that, what would happen in here.
Right. Right.
And rethinking
Right.
how the two spaces connect.
And then all the, the visitors that come, and I always say, as much as that's a special space and successful, the transformation in here
Yeah.
was equally as profound, I think. It seemed like it was just sort of a darling little Northwoods chapel.
Chapel, right.
And now it feels like a very, significant worship space, and liturgically and architecturally and whatever. It sort of graduated from being a little chapel to being something much more.
Yeah. What's special about this place is not just that it's built into its location and it absolutely belongs here. I think it's now organically whole.
Yeah.
Can you conceive of what the next building phase would be?
Right.
Or why?
Right.
Or why you would ever question,
Right.
what do we do with all this space? No,
Right.
it's just right, and it's organically
Right.
whole.
Right.
So now the congregation and its friends become good stewards
Right.
of what is here.